So, let's start. So, welcome to the first SpecFlow Twitch stream. As mentioned in the tweets and blog posts days before, we are automating today an ASP.NET Core application and using Selenium and SpecFlow for that. All the code what will be produced you will find on GitHub. We have a separate streaming project, a repository on our GitHub project. Every code we will produce in the streams you will find there. Good. Then let's get started. The application we are developing today is an ASP.NET Core application and will be a content submission web page. So it's a tool for us, for the SpecFlow team, a small website where you, the community, can send us content, submit us content that we can then feature on our blog post, in the newsletter, on social, add it to our documentation. So it's a tool for you that we are developing. So, good. Check quickly the screen. So, that works. So, let's start with a new solution. Project. What we are doing is we're starting directly from scratch, and as in BDD we will try to first create the scenarios first and then implement the stuff. So we will create a SpecFlow project. That's a new feature of our Visual Studio extension, that we have project templates to really easily create new projects. We choose this, next. Choose the path. Streaming projects. The name is Community Content Submission Page. Project name .specs. We start with the specification project. So solution name, and that's the standard stuff. And when you click now and create, you get custom configuration for which .NET framework. You can choose .NET Core 3.1 or .NET 4.8. This is not limited to these two, but that's what we have added. You can, if you need something other, you can simply change it afterwards. And here you can decide which test framework you want to use. SpecFlow plus Runner, XUnit, NUnit, or MS Test. That's what SpecFlow is supporting. Let's start with let's use our SpecFlow plus Runner. Okay, for our size, the buttons have something. Let's create this project. If you have questions, please post them in the chat, and I will have them looking at it and can answer it as they come along. So we created now the project. Quick overview what is happening. So we have a normal solution, the project, and we have here different parts already created. We have folders for the different parts for our drivers. It's about the driver pattern. I will come to that later. For the feature files, there's already one example. So our classical calculator feature. And then we have a hooks folder. That's for where we put all the hooks implementations to make it easily findable. We will use this today. This SpecFlow plus Runner folder, you can ignore this. It's not really here. This is how the runner has to integrate in Visual Studio. This is displayed. You can ignore it. It's not really here. It's not no folder on the file system. So if you go in the file explorer here, you don't see it here. This is only virtual displayed. here in the Solution Explorer, and our last folder is the steps file for our bindings. So let's first try. Let's build it to see that everything works. Build this done, and you have now in the Test Explorer this one scenario. Let's run this to see if we are on a good ground. So, and yeah, because all the steps are pending, it's so, and sorry, we have it yellow here. Good, but now we can all remove this because we don't need this for our application. But let's create a new feature file, new item. And here also, we have also item templates on the SpecFlow folder. And we have various item templates available. This is our classical calculator example in English. Then we have for different languages, most used languages, some small templates, which only has the feature keyword in it, and one for the hooks. This is interesting. That's for the SpecFlow JSON configuration template file. What you have to be careful is Visual Studio adds always one to the file name, but the file has to be named specflow.json. Let's not add this yet. And the same is also for the SpecFlow Plus Runner as a profile. This now it changed to normal. This should have the name default as a profile. So you have here the templates to configure your SpecFlow Plus Runner. But what we want now is a SpecFlow feature file, and let's start simple. And this is the content submission feature. So today we concentrate only on the front end part, you can say, of the application. So what you see on the website, where you as a community can enter the stuff. I don't think we will get today to also have a backend page where we, the SpecFlow team, can manage all the stuff. So yeah, that's the English template. Starts only with feature. So let's write our first scenario. One thing already, it's this stream is now more about the automation part of it. So all the scenarios, they could be probably better written than we will do it now, and so I said more about the automation part than on writing gherkins. If you're interested in a stream about how to better write gherkins, we can also do this, but today it's only about automation with Selenium. Good. Let's start with some easy feature file scenario that we can, with this once, get a complete pipeline, so that we can start this. It runs. The browser opens with Selenium. We see something and checks if this is correctly. So let's start with checking the title of the page and that we have our whole test infrastructure set up, and then we can further expand on this. So title set to SpecFlow community content submission. So it's not that great. So let's start with then the title of the page is SpecFlow community content submission. It's always easy to start with the 10 steps. So given when then in Gherkin, with the 10 what you want to achieve. We want to check that the title of the page is SpecFlow community content submission, and this happens is when the submission page is open. So in that case, we don't really have a given because there's no need to be nothing to arrange there. That the server is running and everything, that's assumed, that's behind everything. So let's build this, and now we have the new scenario here, and when we start this, it's again not green, it's again yellow, because nothing is bound. You have now two options how to bind the steps. So here I opened the additional output for this result. We are outputting some skeleton code here that you can copy and paste into your code. And the other one is you simply go to the you see this is violet, some purple color. You can simply say here press F12 for go to definition. It's go to definition, and it's popping up such a small message box with only the code for this one step. Or you can also go on the context menu of the editor and have here generate step definitions, where you can create it for all, you copy it direct to the clipboard for everything, or generate this in a file. So let's start here. Let's add a new item, a new class. That's our normal web page steps, because they are on a more technical, on a more not on a business, not on a application domain side. Let's say submission page is open, it's a gettable domain, but title checking, that's web page. So what we need to do, we have here on the small empty class, is we have to add the binding attribute to it. That's in the SpecFlow project. I pressed Alt Enter to get this pop-up here. And add accessibility. No, we don't want internal, we want public. We want to have it public. And then take this, yes, we take this to the clipboard and paste it here. And let's take also the second one here. And what you can see is multiple things. First, we create here this scenario context current pending. That means when let's compile this and run this again. Now before we had this code with the skeleton. When we run it now, we see that it's different, it's pending. And the first one, that there is a step definition, but it's not implemented yet. That was what pending means. And the second one, what we can see here is that because we used here single quotes, the extension from Visual Studio recognizes that this is a parameter and already generates correctly the regular expression for the matching, for the binding. And we have here the parameter, and then this can be renamed to expected page title. Good. So, what to do now? We have now empty bindings, and it's yellow. Let's now create our application. We are that far, and we did not yet have the application project. So let's add a new project. So we want ASP.NET. Core web application, that's the one we want, in C#. It's in the correct folder. Let's name it community content submission page, or yes. So then we have different options what templates we want to use here. It's complete empty with APIs, web application with Razor pages, or with a model view controller pattern, Angular, React. So let's take the web application with MVC. We don't need any authentication. We have it for HTTPS, and we don't need Docker support now. So let's create this project. So that's a standard page that gets updated. If you're asking why is everything not that good looking, is I simply increased the font size in Visual Studio that you can read it better on stream, that you have better. I'm here on a 4K display, and if I would be in normal settings, you can't see anything. So let's have a quick look what's created here in the ASP MVC project. So MVC model view controllers, you split your web application in 3 parts. The views, that's the stuff what you can see. Let's make this startup project, and let's quickly start this application, that you see what's automatically generated. We'll probably remove a lot of the stuff because we don't need it. So now the Kestrel WebServer is okay. It's opened on a different screen. So this is the standard template. You have some menus, you have some content, and you have a footer also with privacy, policy, everything, and some content. So what you see is, what you saw is, so we have here the, let's make this parallel, it's easier for you. So again on the different screen, detach. Okay, detach closes also the browser. I did not know that. Then let's have it normal. So diagnostic tools, we don't need them. So what we have in ASP.NET Core, so let's make this that way, is you have, for this all around, you have where is it? Sorry. We have here, we have for the content, we have here this, ping this quickly. We have the index content. This is always here is, and we have here the privacy. You see this here, and here, yeah, and here in the chat. That's what I'm looking for. You have this underscore layout class. This is the layout around the whole stuff. So here you have your head and body HTML, and somewhere here down is this render body, and this is the content from the views. So if you're on the home page, on the index page, this is rendered here as a render body. Oh, if you're on the privacy, this HTML is rendered here. What you have is then, so interesting is here the URL. So the first part is the controller name, and the second is the controller method. And here there's a classical ASP.NET Core controller. Here's some controller. You have here the different methods. They return an action result, and they return simply a view. Return view. ASP.NET Core and also the other ASP.NET MVC pages, they're assuming a lot of stuff. So you're doing here only return view, and because the method is called privacy, default it takes the view with the name like the method. Same for index. That's why they are called that name. You can specify which view you want. There is an overload. Return string view, and then you can have the same name. So if you have the same view of multiple controllers methods, then you can reuse this. And yeah, so they're simply returning a view. Then there are also models, and models are the data that you're transferring from the controller to the view. So you're preparing in the controller the model, we fill it out with the data, and pass it to this view method. There was a overload with here object model. There you give him the model, and then ASP.NET stuff takes this view together with the model and creates the HTML code. But you will see this all later. And then that's the three stuff in www root. We have the static content like JavaScript files and CSS stuff. And then we have the app settings JSON, that's the configuration for the application. And the last parts are the startup and the program CS. Program CS, make this again bigger. That's your entry point to application. As in .NET Core, we're running here using the Kestrel web server. This runs in process of this application. So no need for IIS or something. And that's really cool because we will reuse this Kestrel web server to host in our test run our own web server and use that for that. That's some starting and configuration, and here you say use startup, and in the startup CS there's all the configuration of your Kestrel web server. Good. That's we have. I have to close this. Now we can remove this. So let's remove all the stuff we don't need. So we don't need the privacy page at the moment. Errors is good, and the controller we can also remove. This stuff, and then in the layout we can remove from the navigation, we can remove also the privacy input, and yeah, the rest is fine. So now we have an application. Let's try to implement our scenario and bring it first to fail, and then we try to fix it. So when the submission page is open, let's jump to this. And that's now the step where we start using Selenium and stuff, and use the Kestrel WebServer as I mentioned before. So the idea is also, I had at least in my old project is because everything runs EAS. I have to first start the project and everything, and then I could run my tests. If I didn't start it before, it was failing. Yeah, there is no web page running. There are no requests, no response. All is failing. With .NET Core, ASP.NET Core and Kestrel, what we can do is we can start up our own web server in our test run and use it here. So for that, let's make this our first step, and then try to get Selenium to start a browser. So let's start with a web server driver. Driver, it's here in the driver. So I'm using the driver pattern. The driver pattern is easily explained. It's and then I'm missing the words. You simply, the idea is that you don't write all your automation code directly in these bindings, in the bindings, because this is not good reusable. So if you need them parts for other steps, and you want to combine multiple steps together, if you have it all in the bindings, that's hard. So idea is having more very short bindings here, and have the complex stuff in the driver pattern. And we noticed this in projects that because of that, it was also easier for the people who wrote the feature files. Sometimes they don't remember all the steps what they are doing. So they are looking into the code of the binding, and if these are only 3-4 lines of code, what is clearly explaining what it's doing, they can that's the one, or that's the one. They can see this and can decide. If you have a 300-line method here, nobody will quickly understand what the binding is doing, and then they have to ask the developer. The developer has to look at the stuff, and so on. So that's the driver pattern. One additional layer solves your problem. So what we make here is we made a method public start web server, and public void stop web server. And in the classical, I have something prepared. So this is something that I use in a lot of projects, so I don't try to reinvent the wheel now again. Have this already in a sample, and I'm reusing this, and I'll quickly explain what I'm doing here. So what is happening here? So we have a start, we have a stop method, and a generate port. The start method is that's the one that starts the web server, and stop is stopping. What we need here still is this is API from Kestrel to start this. You have in Kestrel always some host builder, then you can get this, and then you build it, and you can start it. And stop everything. What we're doing here is we started async, so it's running, but don't wait on it. So it's running in the background and taking requests, and that's fine. And when we're finished with the test run, we stop it. The interesting part is generate port. So what we're doing is we're randomly taking a port where the web server is running, simply because to make, if we do this on a fixed on 5000, that's the same port as the application. So you can't reuse ports over multiple applications, so it has to be a distinct port, and this is a quick way to make some randomness stuff to find a free port. You could do this more elaborate to try it out, works. If not, take the next port. So let's fix this code. So we need this path. We need the Kestrel host builder. Let's have a quick look. The Kestrel host builder was, by the way, this is from our bookshop example. That's a very elaborate and big example of how to use SpecFlow with the SpecFlow Plus runner and everything. So, Kestrel host builder. We took this. What this is I refactored this code. I moved this host builder into its own class. Let's make it here. Very sharper. Quick action refactoring, use block. Okay. Isn't here, so let's do it the old way. Let's create a new class. Kestrel host builder, and add this method. We don't want to have it static. host builder. Oh, this is not. So one thing I did not configure. So you see that sometimes this opens in preview. This is a feature of Visual Studio. You can have a preview tab. You can disable this here under tabs and windows, preview tab. So and when I now select the file, it doesn't open already. So host builder. We need some namespaces. So this is here, nice. What's complaining here? iWeb host builder does not have. Did I take the? That's perhaps the wrong namespace. No. Let's take all these namespaces here. Okay, we needed both. This is probably in some extension method somewhere in defined. So we have restructured this, and then we can say here, except the static method, we say here new Kestrel host builder, instantiated, build it, run. Create host builder. Now instantiate it and say create host builder, and this is this, and this makes now with that we have this in a separate class. We can reuse this here. We only need to add we need first to add a dependency between our projects. Simple as that. And yeah, it's already recognizing the class, and we have create host builder. In our sample, it has a lot of more parameters here. The first one is here. Then we have the host name that we can give this as over as parameter. If I remember correctly, yes, we need this one. this code. So this configures our host differently. This is simply because now our production code of the application, it needs a little bit different handled than in our test case. So we make the host name for default parameter. It's null. We don't need it in our normal program run. It's only that what we are adjusting is only for test automation. And the second parameter is the web root. We need also this some adjustments to it because simply we are in different folder because our test project is in a different folder, and if you don't adjust this web root, it can't find then our CS and JavaScript and icons files. So we need to also adjust this. So this is done. And now we need to adjust, it's a long line, so perhaps we refactor this a little bit, explain it. So I'm used to introduce variable for this. So this is our application assembly path, and then this is our introduce local. This is our web root. So quickly sort this a little bit. So what is happening here? So this is the host name with our generated port. So and we need to adjust this. So what is happening here is when we are executing the tests, our current directory is this one, is this output directory. I hope you can see this. Can't make this big now. It's in the output directory of the page, and we don't have here the JSON and JavaScript files. So we need to, as I said, to adjust the web root to this www root folder in our other applications. And for that we need some pass message. First we're looking, we look where the test assemblies are. This is done by a little bit of reflection with type of, you get the type of where it is, set as assembly and location property, and with that you know the file path. Then we take only the directory name, so we don't need the file name, and then we go up the folder structure and back down. So the only thing we need to adjust in that case is here the folder name. This shouldn't work. And this is our parameters web root that we find. This is sadly needs to be done to find the JavaScript and CSS files. But there we create the host builder, we say build, and then we start async, configure wait false. Yeah, that it doesn't come back on this same synchronization context. Good. One easy part, so there we still need some namespaces, and for that also. The difference between the stop and the start method is the stop is an async task where we really wait that the server is stopped. So we have now the code that this web server starts, but how is this executed? And for that we use hooks. Let's add here a hook class. So this is our web server hooks. And a hook class is similar to a normal binding class. Has to be public. It has to have the binding attribute on it, and then accept the given when then attributes. You have other attributes. In our case, it's we want before test run. Public no, we don't want the before test run. We want before scenario. Public void start web server. And we want to, on the after scenario, public void stop web server. And these hooks are executed before each scenario and after each scenario. And what we can do is now is we create a constructor. And this driver pattern works very well with our constructor injection or dependency injection framework we have in SpecFlow. So you can simply request what you need in the constructor. So we want the WebServer driver. Save this as a field. And then we can here say this WebServer driver start. And here we can say this WebServer driver stop. But because this is async, yeah, we could remove this, but we want to await this, and then we need to have this async task. So what is he complaining here? Yeah, it's complaining because this is not public and the other one is public. So let's compile this. Okay, could not be found. Async task. None. Async task. Namespace is missing. Here. Yeah. If you have questions, please put it in the chat, and I will answer them. So. It's working. What we can do is we can let's quickly try to debug this, but see what's happening here. So what should happen now is yeah, you can see it in the call stack. Okay, the call stack is small. We are in our scenario file. And then we come into our binding class, and this calls our start server, and now we are in our start server method. So then we generate the host name. Thank you, Visual Studio. Okay. We have here a host name. Okay, this is small. Let me quickly try to fix this. Autos window text 12. Okay, I need to restart but for the next time. So we see here we port 22,341. Then continue. Okay, there something happened. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's the exception you get if it's not implemented. That's the pending exceptions. But what happened? Okay, let's stop this. What happened here? Let's try this again. So hostname works, application pass doesn't work. Okay, timed out. Why should this timed out? Output. Ending step. It started. Current root path is wrong. So what is happening here? Let's put this in different variables and try again. So debug. PC scale of locals. That's strange. That's really strange. Let's add here some breakpoints because perhaps it's only a debugger issue. So, can this be resolved? Yes and no. There are some parts there. Assembly is resolved with the location. This would be the correct one. So let's see what's happening. So okay, it's only some debug stuff. So then we get the application directory from there. This looks correct. Then we go up and down. We have to check if this is correct. Yes, very root, first try. And then we start the server, build it, and we start it. So, and if everything works, so hostname is this. Now yeah, we are not breakpoint, so that's not working. Okay, the debugger is in our way. Good, but server is starting. That looks good. When we now add Selenium to start the browser, let's get more easy. But we first should probably make a check-in. So changes, create project, adjust web page and start Kestrel in before scenario. So go away, test explorer. So let's have a quick look if our web page is coming up after our changes. We never checked this. Yeah, it's still here. It's only the home button. Yes. So now Selenium. So for Selenium, we need to add some NuGet packages. new. So there are the correct ones. So we need the Selenium WebDriver package and this. Yes, this installs a lot of dependencies. And so we have here the Selenium WebDriver, what's dependencies? I thought the JSON.NET. And then we also need the support package. And then we need also some driver. And Selenium can automate the different browsers. And for every one of them, you need a connection piece that connects these two. These are the different drivers. So we have here the Chrome driver, Internet driver for Firefox. Let's take the Chrome driver. From my experience, it was the fastest. Good. So, packages there. So we have the API. Similar to how I created a WebServer driver, I will always create a web driver. Yeah, it's driver. Naming it hard. That gives me the web driver I want. And so we have public web driver. Then let's make probably need a constructor. And this has a public WebDriver property. So on there we say return new Chrome driver. That's a return not no, because what we want only to get one. So we need a private WebDriver, and we want to we can do this better. We can use lazy. Lazy is a class that allows you lazy loading to really implement. So say you can say lazy and then instantiate it and add here a value, or you can also add a func. So in our case we want a func here, and we could create this, make it nice, private WebDriver, create WebDriver, return. So here we do the Chrome driver, we return the Chrome driver, and we add this to the lazy. This is create WebDriver. Method group to bool. Yeah, okay, then we need this. Still not. We can't do this in a property initializer. We may have to do this here. Yeah, it's not a constant. You can't do this in the property initializer. But what is happening now? So when this class is instantiated, the constructor is called, and we instantiate this lazy, and have a parameter to this function. And what is happening is when the first call to this property comes, we call in WebDriver.value, and if this was already evaluated, we return the already instantiated instance. if this lazy was never accessed before, we will create a new instance for this WebDriver. In that case, then we call this method, which returns our Chrome driver and so on. This makes it for us easy. If you need to adjust something then later in the Chrome driver, we can simply add it here in the method, and it's easy to change. So now we get our WebDriver, and this starts Selenium, opens the browser, and what is missing is we need to there is a start page. You can configure which page it should open. Let's get it. Is this, let's have as before. I already did this once, so no need to re-event the wheel always. No, is it here? Okay, we set simply the URL. Okay, that's easy. Then we don't need it. So we have here the WebDriver driver, and then let's make another driver. Or no, let's try to get this running. So web page steps. So the submission page is open. What do we need to do this? So we need the WebDriver driver. Again, let's get it here. Context injection. WebDriver driver. WebDriver driver. Control dot assign field. Okay, once again the accessibility accessibility doesn't match. So this means that this WebDriver driver, and we can then access the WebDriver, and then we have the URL property, and then we can set this. But to set what? So we need our start page, and that we get from our WebServer driver. No, that was the wrong one. So this web server driver, that we have the host name. Nice. And this should open the stuff. And let's also try to implement this step now. What we can do is this WebDriver driver. There is a title property to get the title. And we need to assert that. So what you can do is you can use any assertion library you want. Also, if you're using also from unit test framework, so if you have XUnit, NUnit, MSTest, you can use their assertion library, but you can also use any other. What I really like to use is Fluent Assertions. That gives you a nice Fluent API to write your assertions. So it's installed. So what you can do now is you have now a lot of extension methods. So you can say then should. So the WebDriver should be the expected title. And this makes it really easy to read how they expect it, what the assertion is. So let's try to build this. And let's try to run it. So what should happen now is the web server starts, then the browser opens Chrome, and then it should check open the page, it should check the title, and hopefully it should read, because the title is not the correct one. So that was fast. So what happened here? The Chrome driver was not exist in the current directory path. Yeah, that's always a problem with this. You have these NuGet packages, but so let's have a quick look. If it's really there, bin debug. There is the Chrome driver, but we need to adjust some configuration for this runner. So this is the default configuration. First we saw there was some retries, we stopped the retries. We don't need the deployment steps. And it's an environment test thread installation in shared domain. By default, so the SpecFlow Plus runner has different isolation modes for parallel execution. As we don't do now parallel execution, I switched it also to shared app domain because this is simply faster. So, because there was now some hiccup, some processes run. So that's what you see is the usual small problems at the start when you start adding this infrastructure the first time. You have to all connect. So Chrome starts, the page is there, and it's executed multiple times. So hey, this is finished, and we see we have so what we notice is I forgot to dispose the WebDriver. So the 3 Chromes are still open. So this is 1 to 2 we need to do. But what we also see is that we make an assert on the step, on the title. And the nice thing also on Fluent assertion, not only the API, but also the error message they produce. So really expected the whole variable to be the SpecFlow community content submission with a length of 737, but found differs. So this is obvious, but in not so obvious cases this helps you. So we need to read the count to 0, so don't have this multiple times open. So WebDriver disposable. What we can do is we can implement this disposable interface on our classes, and what we can do now is we dispose the WebDriver or value, or dispose, we quit it. Clear now. Quit. So let's build this. And let's run it again. Chrome opens and is gone. And you get one error again. So, what's the next step? So the next step is, before we fix this, I don't like this, how this looks. This is it's not that long, but this is already something I would put in different driver, or perhaps already in a page object. And I think we should at least we should start with page objects. So page objects are, let's create a new folder. Page objects are a representation of your HTML page. So to make it easier to access it, and it abstracts all in Selenium. We work a lot with selectors and IDs to get different controls, HTML controls, and this wraps all the stuff in one place. So we want the home page object model. And what we can do is, so we want to have this title property, public string title, get. So how do we get to this? So how do we get the easiest to this? So what we need is we need a WebDriver. We need a WebDriver, private, because there this is there. Return WebDriver. Title is not a good stuff for page object because this is not for the page. So with the content, they can't. If you're on the wrong page and you would instantiate the wrong model. So let's create a browser driver. Let's create a browser driver. And here we make this public string title. We need a WebDriver. So in this case, let's take the WebDriver driver. And we can say get return WebDriver title. So to get this, but we can also make now here public void assert title, string expected title. And what we simply do is we take from our steps, we take this and put it like here, but we don't need, we need only this title. It should be expected title. We need the fluent assertion namespace. And what we can do now is we get here the browser driver field, and then let's say browser driver assert title expected page title. Yeah, again, inconsistency with accessibility. That's my. So this is already easier to read for non-developer. What we can do is we can also make this here better. So in that case, it's the browser driver. Let's say browser driver go to URL, and we said we want to have simply the host name, because this submission page is open. That's our main page. So let's create this method, and we can say WebDriver WebDriver URL equals hostname, but this rename hostname, let's rename it to URL. So That's not where are our steps here. So now we have, it wasn't that much code at the beginning, but now we have still, we have already a nice API. So let's check this in. So web server working, Selenium, start browser, title, check is also working. So let's get this one to be green finally. So in that case it's easy. So we had, perhaps you spotted it first, and that's in the master view we have this title in the head, and what it's always doing is taking some view data, title from a property back, and always connected this community content submission page. Let's remove this all and make this the SpecFlow community content. So what is our feature saying? Yeah, let's take this from here and paste it there. For that, we wrote the scenario in the first hand. That we know what we need. So let's start this. And green. Yes. Our first test is green. Nice. Nice. And this is nice. So there is no need to run some application before or out of processor IIS. This is all within this assembly of the code. You only need to press on the play button on the test explorer, and it runs. And it runs also, let's go to the command line. Open command line, developer command prompt. Let's make this a little bit bigger for you. 28. Here .NET Core, so .NET Test. This should work. Yeah. Starts. Finished. It's green, also on the command line. And so now you can also easily integrate this in a CI pipeline. Good. So that means our test infrastructure is working, and we can now finally go to the application development and do the rest of the application. Title scenario is working. Good. Then let's write our next scenario. So the idea that I have, let's make the next one that we write a scenario and automate it is if all boxes that we want to have are there. So scenario, or we can make it even better. Yeah, let's start with the scenario. Let's write a scenario that we have an entry box, text box for the URL. URL box for submission is available. So again, there is not much. There's not much given here because they're only given what I don't write given the web server is running, because this doesn't matter when you sorry for that. Doesn't matter for the business side of you. Good. When the submission page is open, then then there is an entry there and there. Then it is possible to enter a URL. Yeah, not the best. It's a little bit for me to it's problematic. It's near the, and then I click this button, and then I click this button, and then I enter in the entry box with ID blah 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 this value. That's normally you don't want to write. But yeah, as said, we concentrate on the automation stuff and not so much on the scenario stuff. So let's create a new test steps class, because these are the steps for our submission steps. Public binding. Yes, then it's possible to enter. So, and now we get to the page objects. Now let's make let's remove this one. We don't need this. Let's make here a new class submission page object. So, and what we, as I said, what we want to have a public string URL get set to have. But what is, what we now do is we will check with Selenium if this entry box is there. And so what in Selenium you have this iWeb element which represents one of the elements. So let's make add first a property to the URL web element, and so this URL is then simply the get URL web element, and this is the text. This is the return. So, and let's have a getter here. So, and we only need also here a getter. So, and now the big question is, how do we get this to this web element? So let's return here now. Let's start here, and I quickly show you how the API looks like for Selenium. So we'll need our web driver again. And what this web driver has, is a find element or find elements method. And with this find element, you can then say by and the different ways, by XPath, CSS select, ID, name, link, text, what you want. And this searches on starting on the whole page, because we were executing this on the web driver. It's going the whole page down. So let's quickly start the application and show you that in the developer command prompt. So we have here elements. So this find elements is searching in the whole body down for something. And when I say find element with the class container, it finds with this div and returns it for my web element. And if this is what I want, that's good. But I also can then again on this web element I call again find element or elements and look for the other ones. So what we need is now that we can find this. So yeah, we need our text box, but so we need our text box. So as it's easy for us, let's make only ID, and the ID should be I'm not text URL. Easy. So this would get us the web element. We simply take this now and give it here again. So return. So we need on our page object class again our web driver. So then we can set, say, web driver, find elements, find element. Okay. So what this does is when we call this property, this is called and its search is there. I don't cache the result of this here, so that we always search new one, because that you have to decide if you want to do this on your own. If you need to, if it's possible that the UI changes with JavaScript or something, you don't want to have then some cached stuff. If you need more performance to make it quicker, then cache it. For sake of simplicity, I don't use it here. Only use the web driver here because this is very easy, and yeah, we have only one instance of it there. There could be multiple instances of this page object. So, but now we have this page object. Let's go to the submission page here. So let's say submission page object. This is not possible. So var submission object equals, and we will refactor this afterwards. So, and submission page, the URL element should not be null. So that's what we're doing. So should not be null, brackets. So but this does not yet work because this web drive is not initialized. Let's do this with a constructor. So sorry for that. So let's initialize it, and then this should work. So let's compile it. And yeah, we have here now this our second scenario. Let's execute this. And this should fail because it can't find the text box. Yeah, unable. Okay, so no such element, unable to locate. So it fails, but not with our assertion. Let's see if we can adjust this. No. Driver. Let's see. Find elements. No. Okay. How can we do this? Is this a generic exception? No such element exception. Yes. Then that's good, because then now we can wrap this into a try catch block. Try catch So this is the Selenium, and then we say return null. So only if we get no such element exception, we return null, except if we get it, we return the element. So let's run this again. And we get our message. Submission element will web element not to be null. Could be a little bit better, but okay. So let's try to fix this. Let's go here on the home screen, so we don't need this. We can also remove this, and now we can create the text box. And what I'm doing now is we will always also already use a model for this, because then it's easier for the text boxes generated. So we make here a submission model and put only the URL here. And then we can say here model submission model. And what we need to do is here in the controller return new submission model. So that's what I talked before. ASP.NET Core is we get here the submission model. It says no content, and it return it with the view. And in the view we have it now here, and that means we should be HTML text box for what this is then here, and this is then model.url, if I remember correctly. So let's see what we get. It opens in another screen, and we have a text box with a semicolon at the end. Okay, that's my bad. So the nice thing, I changed it now in the file. No, it does not refresh, sadly. Good. So we have text box 4. Let's make format HTML attributes. Format string. Func format HTML attributes. So when we have a start again, when we have a look at it again, we have now the text box, but what is happening is that this has an automatic ID with the property. So let's fix this ID stuff. So this should be you can make here add ID equals text URL, if I remember correctly. No. Okay, then let's have a quick look into the documentation. Thank you for that. Yeah, HTML contract. Thank you for nothing. Invalid expression term don't do I need these anymore. Too many. No add. New. I need a new. And these should be really normal strings. Yes, the ID is okay, so this should mean our test should be green now. Yes. Nice. Cool. Good. It's green, so the user can't do any much, so let's refine a little bit our scenarios. I would like to have some let's get some with label URL to submission to content. So let's change this step. Let's also make this URL as a parameter. Let's change a little bit the implementation. So enter. This is the input type, and this is the expected label. So what we can do is we make a switch on input type. At default case, that's good, because this should be throw new not implemented exception input type. This is the wrong, not an add a dollar input type. Not implemented. So if we add some new input type and forget the switch statement, that it's not then green. So let's make there a case URL to upper, so that it doesn't matter how you write it. Break. So and then we can move this code in that case, and this is a string, not a char. We can remove this method. So depending on the input type, what's we have, we are always on the same page. We can move this up. So the only difference is now the web element, depending on that. And what it will always do is, expected label. So then we should also submission object URL label web element, or URL label, we don't need the web element, should be expected label. And I want, it's a property, read on property. So this is a string. Get return null for a moment. So And now it will get interested because we have the URL and the URL label and how to make the label. And what we could do is to make this easy for us. We make a div, a new div, which has the ID URL. And in that div, we put the text box 4 and we put also HTML label. Does this has this constant or expression name to the model? Okay, this is not level 4. Name for transformation. Display text 4. I think this was display text 4, and this is also my model.model URL. And when I remember correctly, you can put a display name here, URL to content, foo, that we know it works, so that technique works, but our test is failing. And now we can adjust our automation here. So the first thing what we now do is, what we now have is, we have now some hierarchy. So we have this div tag URL, and then we have this we have the display text 4 and the text box 4. And what we can do now is we first search for this div tag, and then we search for this other two parts. But let's first have a look how this looks like. Okay, we have there nothing. Then it's probably not display text. Then is it display name 4? Nice. So this was the method. So we have the label beforehand. Let's have a quick look how the HTML looks like. Okay, we have div URL, and then we have directly the content, then has the input. That makes it a little bit hard to get. So let's try to encapsulate this also in a div. So this is ID is label. Then we have the content, and then have the so. Okay, that's yeah. This needs a little bit of CSS styling, but we have now the div with this one and the input with that. That's something we can't not easily can't check with Selenium, but this is now a nice structure. So it's what we can do is we can search for all the URL stuff first as div, and then search from that out first for the label and for the text box. So let's adjust this quickly. So we need our this doesn't need to be private, public. Our web element, your URL element. So this is return driver web find element by ID URL, and the URL element, so we can now go from this one and search hierarchy by this, and you can take this whole stuff we copy the whole element. This is now the URL label web element, which searches for label starting from the URL web element, and URL label is now the URL label web element dot it's text, if I remember correctly. Nice. Back to our steps. Yeah, this works now. It should all be implemented. So let's run this and see what happens. And it fails because our text is wrong on purpose. Always first bring the test to fail and then make it green. So this is failed correctly. Let's run this again. And it worked. Nice. Cool. So let's close this all and let's have a look at the diffs and go once again through them and see what now happens. So on the home controller, we added this model that we can then later exchange data with our server. We have this model with the URL property. With the display name, we set the label on the page. This for command to ASP.NET, this works for if you have only one language. If you need localization, you have to look into other stuff, how to do it. We adjusted our index page, removed this welcome stuff and added our elements. We adjusted we added a new scenario where we check if URL is, it's possible to enter a URL and have the label. We added the page object to access easily then later the elements. So this is quite long already. It's I don't see the line 66. So this encapsulated nicely your elements, but makes it possible to have these steps so much less code. You don't care what is happening. And look, if you remember, we didn't change anything on this assert. We only changed in the page object behind how to get to the web element, and nothing is changed. So this is the nice on the page object model that if something changed in your HTML, if you rename IDs or have a different layout, you only need to adjust the page object to do this, and your assertions and so most of the time stay the same. So before we check this in, let's move this into a driver, because this is already too much. Let's make here a submission page driver, and yeah, we need to have this public before the compiler complains. Submission page driver, field, and we want to have the submission page driver check existence of input. It's the input type and the expected label. And this is the content here. Yeah, then create the method. Yeah, don't need to see it down. So public. So what we need is the WebDriver driver. I will come up with a better name until next time. And we need using here. And now we can remove here. We don't need this anymore, the WebDriver here. Now, and again, a nice short step. So what is missing here? This is what is happening. There is some missing. These are bogus errors. Nice. So you have it here, and this is really nice and short. So let's check this in. For first input type URL implemented. So that's nice. And this what you see. So we really started with a scenario, and from that we created then finally the UI. So you can start writing scenarios before anything exists. This is only describing what should happen, and then you implement the stuff. So like the label, how often did you have to implement some input, and in the acceptance criteria there wasn't a label defined, name defined. If you have already a scenario, your product owner, your tester, or some other stakeholder could write this and come already up with a name for the label, and then you have it. So that's the nice one. Good. 10 minutes left. Let's add some more scenario, or make this scenario a scenario outline. What other input data we would like to have, and let's see how quickly we are. I said it's not only a URL that we want have, but what we also would like to have, it's what type of content this is. So is it a podcast? Is it a blog post? Is it an example project, and so. And we would also like to have some email from you that we can inform you that we publish this and when we publish this. And I could now copy and paste this one scenario multiple times, but this is boring and isn't good to read. So what we can do with Gherkin, we make a scenario outline, and then we can make gives examples. And with this scenario outline, it's like parameters. So we can here say input type and label, and then we can say URL and URL to content, and then we can say type of content as a type. The input type is type, and type of content, and we can say email your email address. And let's remove this. What else could we be interested? Some comment. Or description. So, and what we have now here, we have these names, and what we can do, we can switch this hard-coded stuff with the parameters. So what we have now is, you see, we have now four scenarios. We have our old one, and then for box for submission available, description, should probably rename this to input. And yeah, input for submission available, description, email type, and if it, let's run all 5. And they're running through one Chrome after another. You see already the URL and this is green, but are now red, and this is our not implemented exception file because we did not implement this type check. So, and let's implement one. Let's implement let's implement the first one. So. Again, we need type, make the case, then let's copy that, and in that case we don't want the URL web element, we want the type web element and the type label, and switch to our page object, and let's copy again the stuff. So we have the URL web element, so this is now the type web element. No, sorry. We have this URL element, and what we can do is to make this easier, readable, we make this that way. We don't need a return here. So it's smaller. So then we need the type element, and in the same schema we say type. That we can't shorten. Use body expression. Let's try to use body expressions when possible to make this code shorter. Let's put these together. So we have the type element, and so now we need these two for type. So this is the type web element. Let's name it only type, and that's the type label web element and label. You see there's already some room to improve the in the code and do some refactoring. We'll probably do this next time. So string type label is type label web element text. Okay, we don't check the content yet. So let's try this type run. and it's failing because this element is not here. Nice. So let's quickly add this. That's his type. We need them on the model. No. Public string type get set. We say it's also the display. No, don't do it yet. That's not needed. Mission step. No. Driver. No. HTML. So this is not a type, and this is label, and this is type. So everything is correct. We can we should see now the mirror that the label is not type element not binary, type element not binary. So do we have now two types? Type this no label type. This okay, make this a text type. This is text type. And there we have to name users type element. Yeah, that's happening when you have this. Don't look in the whole path. So yeah, and the display name is different, so let's fix this. And how do we call it? Type of content. And it works. Cool. Good. Let's add this type input added. So that's all what I time have today. The 2 hours are already over, nearly over. Next week, we will finish this implementing the scenario. Probably also some refactoring here on this page object to make this and make the web part a little bit nicer. This we did not see it. We only run this. This is not the best styling, so at least make the label on the left side, and then if we still have time, we will add SCI build to it that these all tests are automatically checked on every commit. And yeah, next time, next week, the stream will start 1 hour later probably, or we'll start later at 3 to 4, and only 1 hour, because at 1 p.m. Central European time, we have a webinar to the SpecFlow plus LivingDoc generator, a new recent product for us that we launched. Where is the blog post? Here, a new product. Application that makes your Gherkins, your automation to a nice living documentation. I can show you this also next week. Yeah, that was all for the day. If you have suggestions for improvements, Please create issues in the streaming projects, GitHub repo, yeah, feedback for improvements or content you want to hear on the stream. Put it there, and I will have a look at it. So thanks for being part of this first stream, and hopefully see you next week. Bye.